evening, everyone. I'm pleased we can all be here, but just before I start, and we are many people on the channel, so I pray that the Lord bless us tonight. But before we start, as I said, I just want to read out of John 2, verse 5. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a man be born of water and of spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and which is born of the spirit is spirit. Marvel not what I have said to you, ye must be born again. So I think the main objective of Christian coaching is that we still retain the gospel and we work with the gospel of the truth. And with that gospel, we will continue and do God's will. So I'm going to kick off with the lecture on coaching. It is going to be important that you understand that life coaching has two sides to it. It has a biblical side to it, and it also has a spiritual side to it, as well as a psychological side. And I will be using psychology and the broader schools of psychology. I will be addressing the different views, and that will happen later on in the courses. But we as Christians need to understand that God has called us for a specific purpose, and that purpose is to serve him and to live by the Spirit and to use the tools we have to also enhance the kingdom of God, to nurture the body, soul, and minds of Christians all over the world so that they can go to heaven as we do. And with that, I'd like to just begin with prayer. Thank you. Lord God, I come to you this evening and I say thank you that we could all be together at this lecture. I pray that as an introduction to life coaching, that God will be with us and that he will provide, and also know that we will know that everything that we do is to the will and to the glory of God. Thank you for everyone that's attended. In Jesus' name, amen. In attendance today, we do also have, I do have my fellow academics. Thank you for being here. And also we have the head of the Pentecostal Protestant Church, Pastor Lorenz, and his wife in as well. So also congratulations to them on their wedding anniversary. That's just something I thought I'd say. And then also, I'm pleased I'm in Durban, but my wife is also on the course. So I think it's good greetings then to my wife that's far away as well. And thanks for the support you've given me. So let us start and kick off with this. And then our congregation, of course, Shalom Centurion, every one of you that has attended, and all those that are attending from all over the world, really, you're more than welcome to enjoy. And I think that's the thing that you have to do tonight, is just take in and understand what life coaching is about. Fundamentally, I've built it on the Christian building blocks, and this is for pastors, executives, and I've also made it for people to understand marriage and to move within the standards of living and also in our homes. So let us go down and start the lecture. Okay, so the lecture of introduction is the introduction to Christian life coaching. And this is how I think we must understand the building objectives on the Christian coaching. The first is to release coaches from their past, coaches from their past. So many people come into this and understand what life coaching is about. Now, let's just understand a coachee and a coach. A coach is someone that helps someone out in there. We've got a bit of an echo here. I just want to see if I can reduce that. Okay. So to release coaches from their past is extremely important, and bringing people in to coaching will automatically be or resonate with taking people away from the past into the future. And that's what coaching is about. And that is possibly the biggest upswing from coaching, from counseling to coaching. The next part is to have coaches understand personalities of different people. I don't think you can work with people if you don't understand personalities. And especially, I think, in pastors and executives, also management, people that manage people, need to understand how they work with people because different people want different answers. Different people want different to understand things differently. And then let's go to the home. A parent, when you are a parent and you have different children, different siblings will want different answers for different times, different horses for different courses, as they say. So it is important that you understand what your children's personalities are, and you can start at home with these exercises because if you understand what a child actually wants to hear, it's easy to discipline them as well as to create a position for them where they get reward. And that's just by understanding the different personalities, because one of your children may be very stubborn and the other one might be very soft. And both of these would need different ways of working. Then, um, to enhance the conflict management skills in management, and also as far as the household is concerned, as far as pastorship is concerned, do not think there is one congregation without conflict. I think every pastor knows, every senior pastor knows, even in the senior ranks, there is conflict, and you need to know how to manage that. And you can only manage that if you understand what people think and what they perceive to think, because many of our problems and most of our problems are about perception. And if we have the wrong perception about something and that can't be cleared up, or we hear something or we see something different to what it actually is, that's normally where the problems come. So misunderstandings. And then to ensure that the biblical foundation and freestyle reference to scripture is still there. I've been to many coaching courses and spoke to many coaches. Well, let me rather say I've been working with many coaches. And I was also in the research committee of Commensa, which is the Coaching and Mentoring Association of South Africa. And working with these coaches, I understood that a very scientific approach, a very psychological approach, with a kind of resistance to the biblical terms or the biblical aspects to this, and or the Christian attitude. And that's where I felt there was a gap in life coaching, and I've tried to address that. And I'll speak to you about that tonight, so that I'm not downing life coaching that anybody's doing. I'm just saying that the there's a gap in community coaching, number one, because life coaching is expensive. So people that get life coached are people that can afford it. I can afford a coach. I can afford a life coach. And those are the kind of things, the gap that I saw is there is the poorest of poor that also needs life coaching. And that poor person could become a rich person if they were coached properly. Or that person that's uneducated could become very educated if they had a coach. And if we can put community coaches in place with the biblical foundation, with a reference to scripture, and show people how we can move up and use kingdom principles into the way forward, is something that we need to align to. And then to bring scientific relation to coaching through biblical text, it is important that we have to be in relation to science. And science does not contradict the Bible, and vice versa. People contradict the Bible, and people contradict science. And that's what we've got to look at. So there are scientific facts, and if we can start sticking to facts and work on the fact, it makes life much, much easier, and life goes on as far as that is concerned. And then the last objective that I'm putting on the table tonight is to ensure that coaches have a plan to achieve measurable life goals. So what we have is we have coaches. A coachee is someone that has to be coached by a coach. And what we found is that we can then move these people with life goals into the next decade. So we can work with people and almost have them program and let's face it, with program with vision, if they programmed with vision, that they have a vision of their life going forward and everything that works with them, that they will know what what they're doing and why they're doing it. It ensures that you have measurable life goals, and these measurable life goals cause milestones. Once they pass these milestones and once they move on through them, they are actually encouraged to the next. I don't know if one of my previous students were here. He was on a life coaching course with me in 2014, I think it was. And he was my coachee, my guinea pig at my coaching course in 2010. Uh, he wanted to become a, a CSA, and that was his goal. But at that time, my supervisors or the coaching supervisors had said that this person has extremely high, unreasonable goals. He has totally unreasonable goals. And until I think it was in 2016 or 17, he phoned me and said, Dr. Cliff, I'm now a chartered accountant. So that's how things happen, and that is it's just special, and it's because he mapped out his life and he worked according to a plan. So the reading that the proposed reading then is the Bible. Don't think for one moment we're going to move away from the Bible. We're going to use the Bible as our cornerstone. But on top of that, then I've also found that what's very handy when you work out people's life maps is get them to read Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. It does work. It does help, and I've used it. And I feel that it's a Christian book that can be read by your coachee, and they can understand that they have purpose and why they have that. Then Andy Stanley wrote a good book on visioneering, and that is visioning into the future under the unction of the Holy Spirit, of course. So there again, we as coaches encourage people to have a future vision and also to have a spiritual vision about their ministry, about uh, their position at work, their promotions, the executives, how they would increase profits. All of these things are in within vision and visioneering, and very good to go through that. In Christian counseling, Gary Collins wrote a big, thick book, and I went through it page by page because I had to. And I would still suggest that you do, if you want a good foundation on counseling, Christian counseling, Gary Collins's book is very good on that. And then, of course, if you go to the secular side of the society, and we're going to have a look at different coaching books. Jenny Rogers that wrote a book on coaching skills, a good one. Then Lauren Bass wrote The Seven Basic Keys to Management Coaching, a good book for executives and pastors to use and managers. Then Coaching Performance, Growth of Human Potential and Purpose, John Whitmore. Also for team building, teamwork, people working in teams, different, even your sales teams, working through that. So just some proposed reading that you can do. And I will base a lot of my lectures on these, although I'll branch out much further than this, because as I said, we will go in the course, we will go into much deeper detail as far as different techniques are concerned. And you'll maybe even use tests, etc., psychological tests that we can use, and the results then prove something to you about yourself, and then you can use those tests again to prove something to other people. So let's go to life coaching per se. If we look at life coaching, the first thing about life coaching is there's a couple of definitions that I want you to know about. The first one is that coaching, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the process of equipping somebody to play a sport, to do a better job, or to improve a skill. That's coaching. A coaching session will be a discussion about this and bringing in all the detail. Then you would have received different hours of coaching for a specific audition. This was an example out of the Oxford Dictionary that I took out there. Life coaching is a person who's employed by somebody to give them advice about how to achieve the things they want in their life and in their work. Now, if you're paying somebody 500 plus an hour, so this is a career as well that you can follow. This is a career that you can go into, but paying somebody 500 plus an hour so that they can advise you and take you into your next steps of life plan with you. And a life coaching program is normally it starts off with maybe weekly, then it moves to 2 weekly, and then to monthly, and then possibly to a quarterly period. That's how life coaching works to make sure that you follow through with your pattern. So, all of this is how life coaching actually works at at um, in society. Then a community coach. Then this is where I found the gap number three is a community coach. Community coach is a pastor, a rehabilitation specialist, a health worker, a community worker. And this can go as far as being senior pastors, anything as far as that is concerned. Now, community coaching, what we need to have a look at there is, and especially with rehabilitation, if you have a look at somebody that's an addict or somebody that's even addicted to depression, because you can have an addict that's just always depressed. It's an addict of depression. But these are people that have to be taken into the future. You can't leave them in the past. You can't leave them in the present, because the present they feel is a mess, and they need to be taken into the future. The goals need to be set for them by them. So they need to set these goals. And once they set these goals, they follow the pattern that you guide them with. And so as a coach and a facilitator, you sit back and you assist them and you guide them in getting their life going into the future. Get them to dream about what they actually want it to be. Now, I've used this example before, but I'm going to use it again. What if you all had to close your eyes now, wherever you are, just close your eyes and remember when you were 10, 5, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. What was what was the dream job that you wanted to do when you were that age? And then get that in your mind quickly. You got that. And after that, I want to ask you, how many of you have actually got to the dream job that you dreamed about doing? So today, I'm a pastor. Today, I'm a strategist. But at the same time, I never dreamt of being an academic. I am. But what I did dream of is being an architect. And that is my love. That is what I like to do. I like looking at buildings. I like designing things. I like designing all the time. And that's the kind of thing that possibly fitted me best. But life and life's turmoil and changes brought about who I am and brought about who you are. But if you take the opportunities that all of these people have that you are coaching and you feed them with opportunity instead of how wrong they are or how they have to fix their wrongs, you fix them by feeding them opportunity. And feeding them opportunity takes them away from their addiction into the new opportunities. They lose their old habits and they take on the new habits. That is where I see the gap. And that is why I am so passionate about training community coaches. Now, people ask me, why are you going in so cheap? And because life coaching is very expensive. It's because I've seen a gap. I know that community coaching is not there. We don't have pastors that can coach. We have pastors that can counsel. We have pastors that can do it well. But the added extra to counseling is coaching. And if you can add the life coaching onto that, then you are doing the work of the Lord in many, many more ways. And I'll demonstrate that now. And let's go further. So, in all of this, my personal experience then, I see that counseling, and I'm a counselor, I counsel people, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to take people and to listen to them and to get into the digging deeper into all of their problems. You dig deeper into their problems, you connect the dots, You allow them to reflect, and by allowing them to reflect, you look at the post-traumatic events, because it's events that cause people to come for counseling. You have to lift them up from depression. You have to get them to a point of understanding themselves and understanding the cause of their problem. You have to do root cause analysis. You have to do conflict management. You have to review their self image with them and the perspective on their worldview. That's counseling. And it's a hard job. You can't tell me, I think the first counseling session that you ever have with someone is at least 2 hours. I think the first hour is getting to know them. The second hour is when you start unraveling. That's the first session you have with them. Counseling is hard work, takes a long time, and it does give results, but as I said, needs an extra piece on this. So rehabilitation, for instance, is recovering from addiction. It's a recovery from trauma as well, because as I said, some people are actually just addicted to their problems. They've got no other addiction, they're just addicted to their problems. Then it is recovering from sickness or medical procedures. This is rehabilitation. And rehabilitation also needs a way forward. People need to know what is in their future, what lies in their future net as far as life is concerned. Now let's go to coaching. Coaching is about life goals. In other words, when I am 45, I want to have achieved ABC. When I'm 55, I want to have achieved this, that, that. And when I retire at 70 or 65, or when I want to retire, then I must have achieved that and that and that, and I need to have certain things in place. Yes, um, it is so that we do not know what our future holds for us, and we do not know when the Lord may come and fetch us by death, for instance. But we do need to plan in life to make sure that we do get to a point where our lives are planned. And if we have congregation members whose lives are planned, you'd have less counseling, because people would know where they're going, they have direction. There's nothing worse than dealing with people that have absolutely no direction. They just want to be there, and they don't want to plan for themselves. But by coaching, you get people to actually understand themselves, understand the life they live, understand their surroundings, and understand their potential. And that will take them forward. So coaching is about life goals, reviewing their potential, understanding their world, discovering purpose, understanding other people, because if they understood other people, they'll be better business people. If they understood other people, they'd be better managers and executives. If they understood other people, they would be better pastors. If you understood your family, you'd be a better father or mother. If you understood your family well, you'd be probably a better sister or brother as well. So even I learned those things. So the creating a God-given habits and good habits are important, and you'll kick the old habits with coaching. That's basically it. So how are we going to integrate this into the gospel? Yes, because I say coaching and discipleship go hand in hand. So the first thing is we have to integrate the gospel into a lifestyle of coaching, where we coach people. We coach elders and deacons and all of these guys. You can coach, because you can take them into that. You can coach ministers. You can go into a coaching program where you start teaching different pastors in your congregation, give them the coaching skills, and then they have their coaches and coachees under them. So there's a whole hierarchy of coaching that can be built, and the potential is there in the church because it's voluntary, and people don't really have to be paid for it, but we can use these principles to take forward. So what we want to do is to take life purpose into good decision making, uh, do conflict and make people understand good conflict management and give them conflict management skills, bring people to bring innovations. It's nothing worse than having people in your congregation that actually could be innovative, that could come up with new innovations, that could be encouraged for this, and they need to be used in such a way and encouraged to do that. Because not everything's about the Spirit. We live by the Spirit, but we still have to put food on the table. And when somebody doesn't have money, when they do not have the wisdom to do what, or to market their product, they seem to fall off as far as innovation is concerned. But some people have fantastic, brilliant ideas. And if they can be coached out of their dilemma with their idea into something new, a whole new world can open for them. And that also then, closing with that, we've got knowledge and wisdom of the workplace, and we can bring all of that in. So coaching, the gospel, and the workplace all work in one, as this diagram then shows. Let's go and have a look at Jesus as teacher and coach. The first thing he did was he told parables. Why did he tell parables? Because people could relate to that. The Beatitudes in the Gospels relate to life purpose. If you have a look at how Jesus taught people, he always taught them, and he actually coached them, because he taught them out of life's lessons he gave them, and then he brought them forward. And oh, you do that, pastors, you do that every Sunday. You try to relate to life, and you try to bring it in. A good pastor is someone that can relate the actions that people take into life stories, into the solutions. And that's the important part here as well. So that the coaching then was there. So also, Jesus also brought blessing to the workplace. Well, he blessed the fishermen. Look at that. So it all happened that way. So he coached on earning. If you look at parable of the workplace, and that is Luke 19, verse 1 to 26. I'm not going to read it now because it's long, but you can go and do this. You can go and check this. I hope you've got some pen and paper with you. In future, I will be supplying my students with a recording of the lecture, and then you can take that out as well. Hopefully, we'll also give you a transcript. But the king, wanting interest on the money when he returned, and he leveled the playing fields. And then he speaks of the potential versus the earnings. So the one with one talent, and then the increase, no increase on the one talent. And so the talents went up, and the increases on the talent and the profit that was brought out of that, all in this parable. It's a coaching lesson that the Lord told. Coaching the poor. Let's teach men to fish, men and women to fish. Jesus walked, he fed them, and he taught them. Um, and then he said something that I think this is also relates to why I say we've got to bring coaching to the poor as well. We need to move our coaching down from the rich that can afford this down to the gap that I've identified. And he says, but when thou makest a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind, and thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee. They can't pay you. For thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. Well, let's have a look at life coaching in a Christian perspective as something, a tool that we can use. And the treasures laid up are not here. They could be elsewhere, but we can use these. Then Jesus also taught the wealthy, and he had his perspective on riches. He says, uh, if thou wilt be perfect, go and sell what thou hast and give it to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. So he says, follow me and come and do my will. Well, that's one perspective. The other one was when Jesus saw this, he was sorrowful because this guy couldn't do it. So being successful in the workplace has its perspective and its downside as well. But Jesus didn't only say that. Let's go and have a look at the next thing. So money and work. So Jesus also speaks to in Luke 16, verse 11, and he says, therefore, he have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, in other words, money, who will commit to you to your trust in true riches. So in other words, if you are not even faithful with the work you are doing, how can you then go and work on true riches, which I'm sure God can give us, and he does give people. So coaching is part of that. Jesus was very much against hypocrisy, and he spoke up against it as well. And he says to people, take out the beam out of your own eye before you try and remove the speck out of the other eyes. Now, coaching is exactly this as well. As we don't try and remove beams from people's eyes, we show them the potential of how to remove the speck out of their eye. So that's the way it is. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. He looks at the individual. He says, Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 farthings, and not one of them is forgotten before God? But even the very hairs of your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore, ye are more value than the sparrows. Taking away the fear. And this is where I say also brings in the coaching. So let's have a look at Paul. Paul had his meeting with Jesus and learned the uh, was a learned scribe, and was persecuted Christians. It was his job. He wasn't very friendly towards them. He met Jesus on the way to Damascus, was blinded for 3 days in about AD 33, 34. Jesus sent him to the Gentiles in Acts 9. But look at the interesting part here is he was mentored by a coach, Barnabas. And he was in visionary mode for about 13 years before his first mission. His mentoring, or shall I say, mentoring was a lifestyle of Barnabas. If you're going to have a look at the writings, Barnabas was a mentor, a coach, he coached Paul, and he guided Paul in the time um, and allowed Paul to observe. You see, and this is the difference about a coach as well. A coach doesn't do, a coach allows. A coach is visionary and takes the vision of the coachee forward to make things happen. So, if we have a look at this, he allowed him to work with church leaders, Acts 13, and then with non-believers on his first missionary journey. And all of these were things where he was also coached. Paul wrote many of the books, but he started off by being coached, mentored by Barnabas himself. Then Paul in the workplace was a mentor, and he was a tent maker, evangelized and spoke to scholars. He didn't play. He spoke to scholars. He spoke to philosophers. He worked there. He got people to plan and own churches. He got people to plan and own churches. He was an apostle. It's the apostolic calling. But he guided people by writing letters. He was a true leader and was not always popular. Not everybody liked him. Paul was not one of the popular disciples. You find that probably Paul was one of the most unpopular disciples out of all. Peter was much more popular than what Paul was, but he did what God had called him to do, and he acted on his vision. And he's a good example of a person doing a visionary journey. And that also, you can read that in Paulson's book, Unlocking the Bible. On page 924, you'll find that there. So Paul stuck to God's plan. He had about a 33-year ministry Paul had. He planned his missions very well. He took guidance from the Holy Spirit, and that was important as well, because if you are a coach and you have the Spirit of God with you and in you, I think you can also relate different things. And the Spirit of God opens up many things to you as well. So I'm working on the spiritual now. I'll get to the psychological part in a moment. Paul coached Timothy by equipping him for tasks of the ministry, empowering him for success, employing him for effectiveness at the church in Ephesus, and by communicating his love, respect, and appreciation for Timothy as a son, as a brother, as a messenger in Christ. But he actually coached Timothy to take over his baton, and he tried to hand his baton in 2 Timothy. You can read that as well. So let's go and have a look there. Firstly, Paul was a visionary thinker, and that is what we bring in with coaching. We bring in the visionary, the getting people to think and think and have vision about the future. God is a God of the past, present, and God only knows the future. That's why, if we can get people to build the future on biblical principles, we can win. Because this was what Paul did. He was a marketplace, and he had marketplace and court debates. He went through everything, and he made it. He was a tent maker and earned a living. Coaching can be used, and life coaching can be used to earn a living as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe there's anything wrong in using life coaching to earn a living. And there are people that can. And just one of the takeouts that you have after this course is to become a life coach in real terms and to earn a living with it. You can do that. Then a church planter, he was also, and planted about 20. on his own, and then others. And this is in the writings of all the scholars. And then there were other congregations, many congregations to today, built through his apprentices, which we coached. He coached these people. If you read his letters, you'll see how he coaches them. And he actually brought the first dogma to the church. The dogmatic principles of the church were instituted by Paul, the coach, the mentor, and he brought those things. So he had many apprentices, and these were elders and deacons and bishops, those he had. And he coached out of his house in Rome. So while he was in prison, in confinement, he actually, people used to come to him. He used to coach them, and they used to go away. And you can read about that. You have read about that in the Bible. So let's go now off the biblical stuff. I'm going to go to the counseling part. So the first thing is counseling. 10% deals with spiritual and religious matters. Discipleship is not the goal. There's very little about eternal life inside of counseling. And then 90% of counseling is about the relationships and situation analysis. That's basically what that is about. So what is counseling? And the good about counseling is there is good stuff. The first thing is that you get people to understand themselves. They need to go through a self-understanding process where in the self-understanding process, they learn to know themselves and they learn to know what the problems are with themselves. They learn and start changing their behavior, because that's what you have to do in counseling, is move people to behave differently. So counseling is based on change of behavior. You're going to change people in the way they behave. Then you will also change them possibly in their way they communicate. If they're aggressive communicators, you might have to soften them and give them softer skills to be able to communicate better, because communication is probably one of the biggest problems that people have, and they go for counseling because of breakdown in communication and self-understanding. They have bad behavioral patterns, they have bad habits, and they blame. We normally find that people blame something for the reason that they're in the predicament they are in. And normally, the solution would be what caused me to feel the way I feel, because I'm doing things that I wouldn't like to be doing. And now I need to find this cause of this big problem. Then self-actualization moves in, where, and it's a lot to do with coaching too, and this is where coaching and counseling hold hands, is in the self-actualization side, where you actually get people to start doing things and thinking for themselves, to move on and to become achievers. You want people to be achievers. Then there's a support system that gets put in place, because you want to get people to spiritual wholeness. So this is the guiding principles on counseling. And if you go and look at what Collins wrote, this is how he perceives counseling to work into creating a better environment and a better self-image for people who are under counseling. And counseling is, let's go to the different sets of counseling. You've got marriage counseling, that's quite common. You've got counseling, personal counseling, trauma counseling. Then you have got counseling for addiction. And so we can continue. Trauma counseling for postnatal depression. You've got normal depression. Then you have different psychological problems that can be counseled in and out as well. So all of these are brought in to the counseling space, very psychological, and it does um, take a lot of time, and people have to work with it. There's a lot of value in counseling. I'm not putting counseling down. I'm just saying that the addition to counseling is coaching. So let's go and have a look at the problems with counseling. The first thing is that often counseling, the reason for counseling is rooted in a dilemma or trauma. That's where it starts. The second point is the past in counseling is extremely important. People dwell on the past. They go and There are counseling sessions where people actually go back into the room and they try and find the reason for their situation in the room of their mother, the rejection that they might have found there. So these are things that counselors go to the extreme in, is to try and find ways that people can get to self-forgiveness and forgiveness of everybody that's hurt them. And everything is about the traumatic event that's happened, and they look at that. So I'm just going to run in this circle quickly. And the first thing is the hurt and must be healed, and it must be discussed. So go into the depth of the hurt, go into the depth of the heart, go into the depth of the sore, open it up, break it out, take out the festering, and see that this client can be healed after analyzing all the hurts of the past. Then it's a painful process, by the way. So once you start pushing and enlightening the past, and you start pushing the trigger buttons, and then people start going into hypnosis, where they or some of the hypnosis theories where they use hypnosis in counseling as well, where they take the person into the past, into hypnosis. Well, I'm not for that, but I'm saying that that's what they do. And then they go into the different painful processes of the patient or client. That's also part of counseling. They do that. Counselors do that, and psychologists do that. Then there in psychotherapy, there's a lot of different methods in psychotherapy that is also that to reduce the psychological pain in people. They're all done. Then the options to address the here and now, they normally look at that as well, not into the future so much, but how do we address your here and now? And then the counselor, it's important for the counselor to sit back and make the person decide for themselves, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but the person must want to be helped, number one, and they must decide for themselves, bring solutions. So you'll find that psychologists are good listeners, and then they will prompt the client or patient with questions, or shall I say, open-ended questions. And as the client answers these questions, they actually answer and build into themselves the answers that they were looking for. And then they walk out and they feel relieved because they've actually answered their own questions, which is a good thing, and it's a good methodology. But open-ended questions we will also use in coaching. So I'm not shooting it down, because we're going to use that in coaching as well. Open-ended questioning is an extremely good tool, and it's a good tool to use. Then the next one in the F section, yeah, it protects the soul from breakdown. Now I'm going to take you into the mind. I'm going to call the mind the soul. For those who want to understand the different principles that I'm going to use, is firstly the body, which is, you can touch it, you can feel it. It's the body. Then the mind, which I call the soul, and that's the gray matter between your ears, that brain box that dies. And then you have the spirit, which is the breath of God, which never dies, and which will be God's for always. And so we just have to take these and use these principles. There's no oxygen to the brain; it dies, it goes away. But the brain is the thinking box. That's where everything happens, and it's the soul that we must protect from breakdown. We need to take everything that's in the brain, the imbalances of the brain, we need to balance. And that is what coaching does. It balances the imbalance of the brain. And even then, in psychotherapy, and the good doctors will actually give people different drugs to try and calm them down, or to move them in different directions to guard the soul from breakdown. That's basically it. And then ad hoc actions are taken in counseling. Although I might have problems with these, I'm saying that this is the problem I have, is when we are counseling, we are working on these factors. This is where we are. And many scientists and psychologists and counselors may disagree with me, but I think I've given you the fundamentals of counseling. And counseling is good. There's nothing bad about counseling. All I'm saying is there's another piece that we need to look at on the top. So let's look at the challenge then. So counseling versus coaching. The first thing is counseling is very necessary, and counseling treats the person. Counseling identifies solvable problems, and the counselor listens and probes to bring light at the end of the tunnel. So for counseling, you bring light at the end of the tunnel so that somebody can be happy. On in the on the other side of the coin, we have coaching. Coaching breaks away from the past. So in other words, moving to the future. Coaching plans a new life. Coaching causes a want to live, and coaching makes the individual plan, doesn't make the plan. The coach doesn't make the plan. The individual, the coachee, makes the plan and has specific goals and specific milestones to move forward and look forward to in life. And then the coach actually just facilitates and guides the person through their own plan. When they've got uphills, the coach says, go left or go right, because I see you're battling here. Just move a little bit left or a little bit right, because the coach takes the helicopter view. And I'll speak to the helicopter view later. But the helicopter view is extremely important, where you dissolve yourself from the situation and you look from the top. And then looking from the top, as a helicopter is, you just hover and you see what the person that's in the situation probably won't see, and that's how you can guide them out of that as a coach. So you want to see how the two complement one another. Well, that's a challenge here because they do complement one another. Counseling is a start to this, but coaching is the finish. Now, do you have to be counseled before you get coached? Absolutely not. You can go straight into the coaching. And this is why I say, in many cases, we can go straight to coaching because coaching can help people. So I've got something that I want you to have a look at now. And this is before we take the break. So I promised you I'll keep you for 2 hours. I'm going to, but I want you to take a pen and paper, please. If you can just get a pen and paper, and then you can go and make yourself a cup of coffee because this might take 5 or 10 minutes. So this is where we're going to work towards a break, and we'll come back at exactly. Seems like we'll be able to get back at 8 o'clock after I've discussed the personal exercise. So what we're going to do now, before we take the break, I'm going to give you your exercise. So the exercise is called Where Am I? Now, some of you might have done this exercise, so don't shoot me, but I think most of you can do it again. The first thing you have to do is, let's go and have a look at 2018. So what you do on your piece of paper, I'm going to leave this on the screen while we have tea. The first thing that you're going to do is, in 2018, you had a high and you had lows. And what was your score of achievement for 2018? So in other words, what were your highs in 2018? What were your achievements in 2018? What were your lows? What were bad things that happened? And what's the score for 2018? A score from 1 to 5. Give yourself a 5 for a good year. If it was a middle year, you can give yourself a 2 or 3. If it was a really bad year that you wouldn't like to remember, you'd probably give yourself a 1. So that's 2018. But you'll now, on a piece of paper, because you can be honest, there's nobody else there. Or if you are husband and wife, or a partner and your partner sitting there, just do that as well. It's you can do this together. But it's good to do this as an individual, and then you can compare notes. So second point is 2019. What was your high, or what was your low, and what is your score? So again, what are your highs for 2019? Just go back and jog your memory. What were the lows for 2019? Because sometimes, if you can see your success patterns, this is where you can identify opportunities. So then you get yourself a score from 1 to 5 again. So 5 for a good year, 1 for a really bad year, and 2 for the middle, 3 for the middle, as you wish. You can put that there. 2020, last year, the COVID year. There must have been some good things in the COVID year. You must have had some highs, some good highs, and you could possibly have had some really lows. Now, what would your score be there? Now, so what I've got here is 3 years of things that have happened. Now, so we in the past. So what people normally say is, how do we work here? We work from past to present to future. So now we get to this year. This is the present, isn't it? This is 2021. What are going to be your highs in 2021, or have you had any highs in 2021? Somebody might get married in 2021. You might say, that's going to be my high in 2020. 2020, I'm going to get married. And those are the things. I'm going to start a new business. These are the kinds of things that you can put as a high, and achievements that you plan to do in 2021. This is this year. Now, you'd normally have made at the end of 2020, you might have made a New Year's resolution, but this is the way I'm just projecting now, with the way we look at past, present, and future, and this is an exercise that coaches do. So you go and you have a look then at your lows for 2021. What are the things that you fear for 2021? Because those fears you have to overcome, and you can possibly get something out there as well. Look at the opportunities you have for 2021. So this can be a very positive year, and some people can even say this is a bad year. So you can score this low, but this is where coaching is good, because you've got to make this a good year. So if it's bad, if it looks bad now, you've got to try and make this good. So you've got to change things. And then how will this accelerate into 2022? And what do I change? What will change? What will I do to achieve? And what do I want to achieve by 2022, end of 2022? And what will my annual score be? So this is basically the exercise I'm going to leave you with. I see that we will then get back together, let's say at about 2 minutes past 8. It gives you 10 minutes. And if you can do this exercise in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break. And all those who want a body break as well, you're more than welcome. Have your coffee, bring a cup of coffee back to the drawing board. Got a lot to discuss after this. So this is your quick exercise that you need to do. Just grab a pen and paper if you've got it. Don't write on your wife's table with a Goki pen. She won't like that. But then do what you have to do, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much. Then 2 minutes past 8, we'll be back to continue. Thank you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed your coffee, or if you didn't, if you did have coffee or tea or whatever, and then maybe if you did jot down your profile. I want you to have a look at this picture now, and I'm going to go to psychological stance now. So a pessimist would look at this and say, yeah, everything is bad, yeah, and I don't know what I'm going to do in 2022 because 2021 so bad, and I can't actually find any highs, I can only find lows. Well, that'll be a pessimist, okay? The optimist would find some opportunities here, and he'd say, you know what, in 2018 I had a high because something happened. In 2019 I had a high, and in 2020 I actually had a low because that was COVID. But out of that I learned this, and I have the following opportunities for 2021. Opportunist, you can take that there. It's an optimist, and very optimistic about this. Okay, then we take the realist, the person who's going to be real, and he's going to say, okay, was 2018 really a good year? And what was really high and what was really low? And a realist is very factual, and they'd go into all the fact and all the detail, and then actually come up with a calculation scientifically to understand these different years, and then start analyzing into the depth and find out how they can get more or less out of the next year in 2022. Now, many bean counters would also do that, see how much money we could have made in 2018, 19, and 20. So that's looking at that realistic, factual database. And you can be that as well. By the way, you can be a factual person. So coaching is for anybody. Well, I'm trying to present to you that I've just mentioned 3 different psychological groups, or 3 different psychological windows that you would look through to see this. Now, if I was dealing with a pessimist, for instance, I'm dealing with a pessimist that only sees the bad in this, and I'm the coach, then I have to lift the pessimist out of pessimism and show them opportunities and make them feel good about themselves, about their strengths, and move them on. That's going to be techniques that you're going to learn in the course. Okay, so if the opportunist, and now sometimes the opportunists are over opportunistic. So, in other words, they dream so big. Oh, I suppose I can say I'm like that as well. You dream so big that you aim for the sun and hit the moon, but at least you're going to hit something. So at least you're aiming for something. It's good to have that kind of vision. So that's the opportunist, and now you might have to bring the opportunist back to reality and say that fine. Then you get to the realist, and the realist believes in only the facts that are on the table. So let's go and have a look at all the facts. We bring the facts into order, and out of the facts that we build into order, we can build a vision. Now, not always good, because if you have really bad facts, you might not be able to build good vision. So, as a coach, you're going to have to take this person that's a realist and move them into giving them hope and taking them out of that. So, there's always going to be a balance that the coach he facilitates through the different windows. And you allow people always take a cup, and if you do have a cup, pick it up and have a look at it. So if you're looking at the cup from the top, you probably see a circle with a line, which is the ear of the cup. If you had to hold the cup up straight, you'd see the side of the cup, and it would be a different object. And if you had to turn the cup upside down, you see two circles, the bottom and the top, two circles with a line in them. So basically, it's also like this with how we see life. It depends which window we're looking through. If we're looking through the window of 2018, we'll see something. If we look at the window through 2019, we'll see something. 20, we'll see something. 21, we've seen something. And the window of opportunity we look through is window of 2022, flowing out of 2021. That's the good thing about coaching. So, and coaching goes much further than this. This is just 1 year I've played with. Okay, so I think you'd understand what I'm getting at as far as this is concerned. Fine. Um, so life coaching models is the next point I'm going to go to. So you will find that there are many different coaching models that are on the market, and these different coaching models have been brought to market. But the most important coaching model, and where everything started, is the grow model, the GRO model. And I'm going to explain that because you will, in any coaching exercise, you will be taken to this theory first. And now there's no one person that can clearly be identified as the originator, but it was Graham Alexander, Alan Fine, also John Whitmore, and these guys were all the psychologists that came up with the coaching model. And it was said that one of these was a golf player, and he actually thought of this on a golf course. So that's just a bit of history into coaching model. But the first thing about the Go model is to have long-term goals. Now, as an investor, you should have some long-term goal, otherwise you wouldn't invest. Is that not the case? As a building, if you buy a piece of ground and you bought a piece of ground as a newlywed, you must have a long-term goal for that piece of ground. You must have the long-term goal is going to be the house that's going to be placed on that piece of ground. Is it not so? If you are a student pastor, you would have a long-term goal to become a pastor or a senior pastor. That is the long-term goal. So there will always be a goal and a cause for what we're going to do because of the goal. So the goal gives us cause for action. And that's why we start at goals. So in coaching, you would always start with what are your life goals? And you put that forward. So I get people to sit down and dream. Dream the best dream you can dream. Now, you know what I dreamed? And I'm going back now I dreamed a church called God's House. This is just my dream. I'm going to share it with you. I dreamt 30 pastors in God's house, no one owning it, only this is God's house, called God's house. 30 pastors working in God's house. Now, That's the goal. That's the long term. And in this long term, that you have that um, church, for instance, in this goal that my dream was that church would be, and I got this from my coach, my predecessor, and he's deceased now, but 24/7 church where electronics and the media would be part of the church model, so that you would be able to walk into a church anytime 24/7, and there would be services on the go, which whether they be live or whether they be by media, but you would have that. And it's becoming so real now because we've got the media. You sitting listening to me for 2 hours now. So get an idea of this. And then to bring in one set of media principles for different people serving different people out of the same building at different times. Now, this was my goal, a long-term goal. Have I achieved it? No, I'm stepping on slowly, slowly. It can be achieved by the will of God. Do I have to go and do my own thing to do it? No, I have the opportunities that the church has given me. The church that I belong to have given me to do this. So can I continue going in my model and that I've got? Yes, I can. So, but what's the reality? The reality is I don't have all the money. The reality is I don't have 30 pastors. The reality is it won't happen overnight. The reality is the infrastructure must be built. The reality is the infrastructure must be purchased. So I'm taking you into an idea that I had, but you need to understand that there's a reality behind this. The reality is that you need people to buy into your leadership so that you can lead them and that they'll become part of the pack. So you cannot just sit back and say these things are just going to happen because I dreamt them. No, you have to go and measure the reality of the case. So have a look how real it can be. Now, my faith had taken this far because I had taken some large, unrealistic steps in faith because God had laid that on my heart and I'd done that. And God had blessed that as well, and also through the church. But what I'm saying is, the reality is that I had put my faith in the goals that I had, but when I had to face the reality, there were two things, and this is where the Go Faith model comes from, because I'll show you that you need to not only be realistic, but you need to also put faith into action. So you're going to look at the reality, but you also can put this into action, and I'll show you how. The obstacles versus opportunities. So are there obstacles in my dream? Now, think about your dream. I just want to think, what is your biggest dream that you're thinking of for the next 10 years? What must happen? What's your dream for the next 10 years? And if you don't have one, that's a problem. That's where you, as a coach, you've got to get people to dream on the next 10 years. There must be something better than you've got now. Okay, so now you have obstacles and you have opportunities. And what a pessimist would look at, and this is how the coach helps. The pessimist would list the obstacles, and the coach would say, but what are the opportunities? Or the opportunist would list all the opportunities and not list obstacles, and the coach would say, but what are your obstacles? You understand? And this is where the balance would be brought on. And then the way forward would be brought on with identifying specific milestones and timelines. Because I want to have a Ferrari by 20. Well, I'd like to have this one, but it won't happen. But I'd like to have a Ferrari by 2023. Now, what are my obstacles? Well, the first one is money, of course. Um, so you understand what I'm saying. So we're bringing these things forward. So that the way forward must be sort of realistic, at least. So you can't go and plan something that's totally unrealistic, would never happen. And even your faith won't be blessed by it. So that is where the coach brings perspective back into the planning of someone's life. So someone's life has to be planned. And if you're planning somebody else's life, don't be careless about this. You need to understand that you are assisting them and facilitating them in planning their life to be successful and to make their plan work. Now, I'm going back to my example. Malibongwe had said to me that he wanted to become a chartered accountant. I was in the model I'm going to use, I'll explain later as well, and he went in to my coach, or at that time my supervisors, and he said to them that I'm coaching him to become a chartered accountant, and at that time he was still busy learning for his financial diploma. And these guys just said they don't know how he's going to do this in the next 5 or 10 years. He's just it's just beyond him. That's what they said. So they said they gave me a good evaluation, but they said my coachee was a bit too opportunistic. Well, he made it, and that's what's good about this. We've got things to prove this. So what are the 5 challenges then with the Go model? Now, the first challenge with the Go model was that visionary thinking was not made visible. It wasn't made so visible in that people should actually sit and contemplate about the future, be visionary about this. The big visionaries make a visionary statement, and in their strategies, they go of big companies, they make a single line strategy. They say by Amazon, if you use their strategies, if you look at all of these, there were single line strategies they made. Now, if I had to make a strategy and a strategy line for my church, for instance, I would say a discipleship church for all by such and such a time. That's just a visionary statement. A visionary statement is something we're going to plan and live by. And then we bring all our milestones through to do that, because that will be the impact. And the impact statement will take you forward, or take your coachee forward, to move into a new position. And that's how repositioning happens. So the first thing I find that there's not that nudge to reposition in the coaching model. The second one is that assumptions are often not listed in the leading, and leads to a wrong reality. So many times as a coach, you might have to ask people, you know what, you assume something, they make an assumption, and then you say, by what rule, or where do you find the fact to base your assumption on? Because you can actually notice as a coach that this person is making, your coachee is making an assumption about a matter. Then you would ask questions that would make the coachee go and find the facts and come back and prove their assumption right or wrong. And that would prove them and push them into the side of reality, the reality of right or wrong. And that's how a coach would bring out with open-ended questions. And you'd prompt the coachee with they looking at the reality, and you'd have to start um, also prompting them with that. The C part here is, in the options, the initiatives aren't always spelled out. There are initiatives that can be taken in options, and the options versus the obstacles. The obstacles might be listed, but what are the options that need to be brought forward in this? And that is where I've also, in the Go Faith model, the next model that we're going to discuss, the model that I propose, is there in the model you'll be taught. The action should be targets and measurable ones. And my colleagues, Dr. Kamala is also on board, I see, and it's all about smart and making something measurable and putting targets down that are realistic, and these things, and I'll speak to them as well. And then you see often assistance is required. And what I'm also missing here is, who's going to assist me to make my goals? Because I found that I had this big dream, but I had to go and knock on doors to find assistance so that I could make my dream. Because let me tell you, my dream cannot be done alone. I need assistance, and I had to knock on doors to find assistance so that I could get to my dream. I've used my own dream as an example so that you could all relate to something, because possibly you all have your own dreams, and you'd also have seen that sometimes your dream could never have materialized if you didn't knock on somebody's door, if you didn't ask for help. We need to ask for help. So what did we do then? So the different Go versions, and I've got the fifth one I'm going to present to you now. iGo, they've added a purpose statement onto, so there you'll find, and if you look at life's purpose, Rick Warren's life purpose, this will work very well with that model. The iGo model works very well. So all they add is the I is your purpose statement. What are you about? What is the coachee about? And then that takes it forward. So the T plus model expands on focus. So it's a focused model, and the expansion on the specific focus of what has to happen. Then the Rego model is interesting, where as soon as you have put coaching in place, you use the Rego model, which is not a bad idea. So you've put a model, you've put a plan in place, but then you use the Rego model to follow up on your coachee to continue. So the growing process of the final goals is monitored through the Rego model. Not a bad idea. And that then we have the cognitive divergence and convergence thinkers model, which is very academic, and we can bring all the psychologies into this. Now, psychologists have done a lot of work on coaching. They've done a lot of good work on this, and the new ages have also put their finger in the pie. So you've got all of this mix, and you've got to be very careful that we don't take new age principles and bring them in. Now, for instance, I was on one workshop in Cape Town where um, the um, the facilitators started playing games, and they said, now, who's got a headache? Okay, now heal yourself. Close your eyes and do self-healing. So what we're saying is that I've been through these different models. I know what everybody's up to. We've got others that are using the Eastern mechanisms, and with different yoga and different models, all being brought into coaching. So life coaching, is it good? Yes, it's absolutely good. Is it like a religion where you've got different camps? Yes, it is. And you've got to be very careful that you don't fall into the new age camp. And that is the only caution that I have on coaching, is that many people can drift into the new age camp, and then it becomes problematic. I'm not for that. I've studied it. I've worked with them. I've worked with new ages. I understand what they're doing, and I caution the church that this would be problematic. So getting back to my Go Faith model. So the goals. So the first thing we have a look at in the Go Faith model, as you can see on the first line on the top there, we've got the goals. And I've spent a lot of time on goals. I've spent a lot of time on reality. I've spent a lot of time on obstacles, and I've discussed that, and obstacles and options. That's the O with two portions to that. It's obstacles versus options, opportunities, and then the way forward. So that's quite plain and simple, and we'll still use that. But what I'm adding to this is the faith on the bottom. So foresight. With goals, you need some kind of foresight. Now, if we go into the ministry, for instance, and forgive me, those that are managers might not understand this, but let me speak to the pastoral side of this. If we go into the ministry side, then we will go and we will have a look at spiritual foresight. We will have a look at numbers. We will have a look at different ways that we can do church growth, different ways and different options that we have in different ministries. And in those and through that foresight, we will then start putting goals in place. So in our foresight, we will even put prayer and fasting into it, so that we could get prophetic innovation into it, and then place goals down there. So the F and the G work together hand in glove for that. Now, let's go to the industry, or to an executive. An executive would take his financial numbers, or his or her financial numbers. They would take those. They would take the facts about their business. They will take operational facts. They will take different studies and statistics. They will take and go and look at the political environment, foresight. and look at all of those things before they strategize and put goals down. So you would not just go and put goals down. You would test your goals according to a an assessment, a strategic assessment that gets made. And that's what the Faith Grow model does, is it brings a strategic assessment into setting of goals, which I think is important, or I know it's important, and this is why I'm proposing that. The other thing is assumptions versus reality. And I spoke to that as well. So what we need to do is we need to list the assumptions and probably negate these assumptions into reality, because assumptions can be listed. So in some cases, you would use assumptions to base your themes of reality on those assumptions. And sometimes you would find that it would be best to find the facts first before you assume and then go back to reality. So assumptions is important in the faith side of things. So you would take reality and assumptions and sort yourself out there and get that done. Now, this is the coach's work. So the coach works off a model. You bring somebody's in and say, I'm doing an executive coaching, then I would go to the strategies and the goals, and I would work there. Then I would take the executive through the realities and the assumptions. Assumptions can be about his fellow executives or her fellow executives. It could be about the principals. It could be about managers. Assumptions about managers which aren't true, because he hasn't or she hasn't looked at the statistics, and that's how you would bring down the true reality out of the assumptions and not mix them, and prove that the assumptions are either correct or they are incorrect, and then these are negated. And it negates so many problems later in life and later in the plan. Then looking at the obstacles and the initiatives. So if I find obstacles, I should surely be able to find 3 or 4 initiatives that will overcome the obstacles. So those are the things. So as soon as I have obstacles, I need to understand how I can overcome those obstacles. Now, the initiatives to overcome the obstacles may not always be realistic, but the realistic side of things you've already looked at. So the initiatives again will be brought into play with the obstacles, so that initiatives overcome obstacles. Then look at options and opportunities. So options and opportunities to grow and to plan well must be linked to targets, because if you have an opportunity and you are setting a goal, there must be some sort of target that you are going to put down. And these are the milestones to get to the goals. So you put these down. So you've got your targets and you put your targets down. Those targets would work towards the way forward in a initial timeline. But this is where this interesting things comes. I spoke to you and I said that in these initiatives, I had to knock on doors so that doors could be opened for me so that I could make my goals. I need to put my hand up for help. Now, what is good about this Go Faith model, it brings the intention back to home, where individuals can see that they can't stand alone. They can't make the grade alone. They need other people to help them. They need help. What is the thing that we say in counseling? If somebody puts out their hand and they say, I need help, you can help them. Until they've done that, we can't help them. Now, in coaching, you are going to put out your hand, and at some stage, you're going to put out your hand and say, I need help, and I need help to get to my targets. You can explain your plan to other people. This is a good way to do a business plan. And once you can actually present your plan to someone can take this and actually go with you and walk a second mile with you. So best thing you can do is to take other people along. How is the coachee, how is the coach going to get the coachee to take other people along? Who's the first person they must take along? Is their spouse, number one. And if they don't have a spouse, a partner, or if they in a work a relationship, they have to take their team with them. They have to take fellow managers with them and break silos. So this is the help part of things where other other sections, and let's just go back to maybe a industry or into an administrative system. There, we have the biggest problem that we have there in strategies not working is because of the silo mentality. Help. This in coaching takes the silo mentality. So automatically, when the silo mentality is broken, we can build and move forward to grow and to get and to reach our goals together. You know the old story about um, the guys that were in the camp, and they set a trap. This guy set a trap for an elephant, and he lived in a village, and the elephant fell in the trap, and he couldn't get the elephant out. So he went back to the village and he says, "Can you come and help me get out my elephant, please?" And everybody looked at him and they said, "It's your elephant. Go and get it out." Well, it continued for a while, and afterwards he had a meeting with the indunas in the village, and he said, "Okay, if I make it our elephant, will you come and help?" And they said, "Yes, we'll come and help you." And everybody went out, and they assisted him to get. This is an old mission fable that's been told, but then everybody helped to eat up our elephant. So this is exactly that. Coaching is also encouraging people to work with other people and finding assistance to make our elephant go away. So, the Go Faith model, the problems we addressed there, the first thing was visionary thinking is visible and active. The assumptions are identified leading to reality. The initiatives are always spelled out. Actions have targets, measurable ones, and the assistance and resources required from elsewhere to achieve the targets are identified. So, this is the good thing about the Go Faith model. So let's look at coaching principles. So the first thing about the characteristics of a Christian coach is he or she must be innovative and they must allow for innovation. They must inspire others. A Christian coach builds good relationships. It's about building relationships. It's about building good thought patterns. So, in other words, your thought patterns must be good because you're going to have to build other people's thought patterns. Because this is also now it's not about neuro linguistic programming as much as it is, but by programming and making people think positively. So programming your session in a positive way. You can't start off a coaching session in a negative way. You always need an icebreaker to move into a pleasant atmosphere and make it good. Now, Cell Church and all these guys know that the first thing you would do there is you'd have an icebreaker so that people feel, now I can be part of this. So it's the same with coaching as well. Make sure you have some kind of icebreaker with your coachee. Looking at development areas, they're going to be problem solvers. They're going to look at divergent ways of problem solving. Become a good communicator. Well, sometimes I think I need to work on my communication all the time, but everybody has this that we can just be better communicators, well disciplined, and also solution orientated. This is the characteristics of a Christian coach. Then, if I had to put that down, because we don't have many Christian coaches, we have many psychologists, we have psychotherapists, we have counselors, but we don't have Christian coaches. And this is what I'm pushing for. This is why I'm doing it almost free of charge, because I feel there's a gap that we as Christians have to address. We need to coach the people that really need it out there. So Christian coaching is a practice. We can use facts for discussions. Just remember, as a coaching practice, you use facts for discussions. I've been through the model. We do pray about matters, and we're not going to lie about that. We're not going to hide behind it. We do pray about matters, but we're not going to use praying about a matter as an excuse, and that's a big problem. So, as a pastor, I know when people tell me, when I ask them about something and they say I pray about it, I know it's a no, because that's a good excuse that they use. My pastors, you're laughing there. I know I'm not hearing you, but you know that story. And then you got to be a support base, not the solution. You see, as a coach, you are not the solution. You're only the support base. That brings that in. You need to investigate, if your coachee has a problem, you need to also investigate better ways to do things without telling him or her that you're doing this, but you've got to get them there. You need to engage when it is required. Now, you can have a very overburdening coachee that wants to phone you every 5 minutes or half an hour, and you can get irritated with that. And then you need to put house rules in place. So a coachee must know that an appointment is what we scheduled, and we will work through the appointment time. And otherwise, you've got to work through things yourself. So you do help a coachee to work through things themselves and not to become your pal, but still to be your coachee or your coach. So you'll be the coach and they'll be the coachee. And that relationship needs to be managed so that there would be a kind of discipline in that. Now, does they always say who audits the auditor? Now, this is the case as well, where we might have to start looking at that as well. As Christian coaching comes in, we might have to start looking at a practice where we have coaching supervisors, so that when you are already done, I've had some of my counseling sessions. I've got into bed with the links to my wife, and I said, you know what, I need a counselor now, because and we felt like that before. So that is important, that you should have somebody that you can speak up to, normally a more senior person that you can share this with, or fellow peers. So the peer interaction is important, and you've got to do that. And I use peers as well in my in my thinking. Then observe behavior to enforce change. You've got to observe behavior, so you've got to become a behavior observer so that you can enforce change. This would also be in the working realm, in management. You'd have to do this. It's all about behavior. It's all about getting people to behave differently, and that's what coaching's about. Regular one-on-ones are quite important. Now, once a week is good in the beginning, and then it can go to once in 2 weeks, and then, as I said, once a month, and then once a quarter. But regular one-on-ones are important, and you would stagger them as the coachee grows. You close with reflection. Always close with a reflective moment. So what have you learned today? What's your take home? What do you want to take home? And I'm going to get to that. I'll reflect on that as well, show you what reflection is. And then you choose a good coaching supervisor. I've spoken to that as well. Get somebody that can just supervise there. Don'ts for coaching. Don't coach with your agenda. The thing is, when you go into coaching, and some of you might not go with my course, but I think the information you've got tonight is good enough to take you somewhere that you can go and think about this and actually work on something in your own lives. And if that's all you've got tonight, I'm happy with that. But don't rescue or offer advice whilst the coachee is pondering. So that's an important thing, is when a coachee is pondering on something, don't stop their thought patterns and try and give them advice. Allow them to get through. Now, this is something I've got to look at. Don't dominate the discussion. Is always in a coaching session. I'm quite transparent about myself as well. But don't dominate the discussion, and don't be the captive. So you've got to be there, not to be the captive. And then don't try to repair damage of the past. Don't try and repair somebody else's damage. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not a panel beater. You can't do it. Leave the damage and work there. Don't try to be the hero either. And don't be the little coachee, is the other. Sorry, don't belittle the coachee. So the other thing is, you never, never, never take somebody down. Never tell them how bad they are. Never. You never tell a coachee that they're bad. You always tell them how they can improve. I think that's important. So that's just touching on coaching, do's and don'ts, so that people know what coaching is about. So coaching, what's in it for me? I'm getting to the end of my story, but as an individual, you're going to discover a lot about yourself. When I go through each lesson, the next 10 lectures or the next 9 lectures, because one of them you're going to do revision and practice for your for your uh, the end result. So where do I fit best? My strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, all of these things. So that's a normal SWOT analysis that you'll be doing on yourself. You'll understand that is, what are your threats? What does your career or ministry look like, and what can it look like? And then the model for the next decade. So there's an individual at the end. What's in it for you? If you have to follow and do my course, that's what you will get as an individual, and you'll probably end up being getting much more. So let's have a look at the second part. As a parent, this is what you'll get: your personality versus your spouse and children's personalities. You know what? There are different models that everybody's using. They base it on the same principles. Really, it's you've got some models, the red, green, and different colors, and you've got different ways of doing things. But the personality models, I teach you to understand the different personalities, because remember, your personality is not the same as what your children or your spouse is. And I'll teach you how to move out of the four main personality zones. I'll make you move out of them into where you can best fit your spouse's personality, if you understand that, and your children's personality, so that when you have to answer them, you answer them the way they want to be answered, and with the attitude they want to be answered in. And those are the type of things. That also helps with conflict management, by the way. Then personality matching at home. How do you match personalities? How do you get them in? How do you match personalities at work even? So I'm going to bring something else is, if you've got customer care that you're doing, and you find that certain clients just don't match, the personalities don't match between a customer care manager and a client, then you move that client away from that customer care manager to another one, so that you don't have those issues, because probably it's just an issue between two people rather than it being an issue about the situation itself. And many times situations are solved just by two people being taken away from one another. I'll speak to love and discipline. Also, love and discipline in the home. Proactive arguments, because we need to have arguments, but we need to have proactive arguments. So proactive arguments are more debates, but a nagging argument, and arguments that really become aggressive are not supposed to be there. House rules and family success. These are the things that you will learn about, and you'll be able to take yourself forward as a parent, as a spouse, or as even as a grandparent for that matter. Excuse me. In the workplace, we'll look at career modeling, personality matching. I've spoken to that. I'm going to speak to it again. Then I'm going to go into the next part here, and look at productivity adjustment. You'd have to adjust productivity. Now, the productivity adjustment, you can have a look in ministry. There's productivity in ministry as well. There's productivity being an executive, and you've got to do productivity adjustments. As management, as a manager or as a senior manager, you have to do productivity adjustments. So it's all about team relationships and self-development, how to bring your teams into a set where they can actually develop themselves in a team to become more productive. So all of these things were performance enhancement. How do we enhance the performance in the workplace? Conflict management, I've taken right through the whole circle. I'm not going to repeat that, but conflict management in the workplace, extremely important as well. Innovation, the root cause analysis, and workplace behavior. All of these things that you will come out with if you continue with the course. The church and the community, number 4. First, the church executive roles and responsibilities, ministry identification, spiritual growth, marriage and family protection, trauma management and allocation. Trauma management allocation. So how do we look at trauma management, and how do we allocate that to certain individuals who have the personality to do that? Some individuals can't work with certain trauma. So you can't send somebody to pray for the sick, and this guy doesn't even feel for the sick. So that's the kind of ministry allocations that you'd have to do as well. You can't send somebody to work with the poor and be in the poor ministry where they just don't fit. They're never going to be successful at all, because it's not them. So these are the things that we've got to have a look at. And also in different trauma cases, you would have specialists that can work in different areas. And this may even entail counseling first before these people get to coaching. So you might even end up coaching counselors so that you can get better counseling out of what you go. Then volunteer recognition, we'll speak to rehabilitation techniques, because a lot of rehab things that are done, techniques, don't always work, where coaching can work with these, and we can bring them in as well. Community purpose, team building, and counseling structures, we can work on all of those things. So then, what is this going to be? A changed me? Yes, you will change. If you've done this course, you will change. I have proof of that. The previous students that have done this course can say they have changed. So what will happen? You'll have a new way of thinking, an adjusted lifestyle at home, church, workplace, and in class. You'll have new habits. You'd have new habits, and you'd say goodbye to old habits, and you'd advance skills. Now, yeah, was something I'm going to give you a good example of a new habit. And actually, while I was busy with this course, presenting this course, and I've never stopped with that habit. Well, sometimes I'll skip it, but this is what I did. In the mornings, the dishwasher would be open because we'd wash the dishes at the evening and then leave it to dry, and the next morning it had to be unpacked. So I would find that while I'm making coffee in the morning, I could actually then unpack the dishwasher. So I started with that as a new habit. And once I caught on to that new habit, every morning, well, when I wake up before Salome does, because nowadays I think she's beating me. She's up earlier than I am, but I was always the first one up. And then I would, while the kettle is boiling, I would unpack the dishwasher. That was a new habit. But I brought that new habit, a new way of thinking, in to ease the burden on the household. So what I'm saying is we will all have to start improving in the new way of thinking when we put old habits aside and we advance our skills. So that's it. In problem solving, become a problem solution thinker, or a solution seeker, sorry. And then one problem with three solutions. That's a good formula that you'll have, and you'll always be doing the helicopter view with me. You don't come to me with problems, you'll come with a problem with three solutions, and I'll choose the good solution for you, and then we can talk about it and plan. That's how it's going to work. Goal setting. You're going to set SMART goals. Now, SMART is broken up into specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timelines. That is something that we did. And if you want to become a full-time coach, you can do that as well. And the going rate is, I think, at about 500 plus an hour. And it could even be more. It depends on what level you're coaching. But a life coach profession is possible with further training and experience. I'm not saying because this course is not SACWA accredited, I'm saying that. So you can join Commensa, and I was a member of Commensa. I was a member of the research team as well, or the International Coach Federation, ICF, and they have their own chapter in South Africa. So you can join. Those are the two coaching organizations that you can join for professional coaching. That's what you can do. So what's in it for me? The first one is that you'd understand, have an understanding of counseling. So that's what you would have. Second one is that you have an understanding, the takeaways that you have tonight. Sorry, these are the 8 takeaways. The first takeaway that you have is understanding of counseling. The second takeaway is the understanding of coaching. I'm sure I brought that out. Jesus as coach and Paul as coach, as I explained. And then the Go model was discussed and explained. Then the Go Faith model was explained and discussed. And then the annual analysis plan, which you did at tea time, was discussed and worked through, and I'm sure that you can do something with it. I hope so. I hope you'll take that plan and just improve your future by just having a look at that. And then what's in it for you is what I've just sort of discussed now. And then last but not least, the course outline and understanding. So the course that's going to continue is going to be this, and this is to be paid for. Firstly, the introduction I did tonight. Secondly, I'm going to teach you to visioneer, and we're going to do visioneering. Third, we're going to do a personal inventory. We're going to unpack our own inventories and see what good and bad in us and how we can change them and how things can be bettered and how many opportunities we have there. Then we're going to found the future on a personal inventory. We're going to look at life substance. Then we're going to look at a bigger picture for life. We're going to secure a life canopy. We're going to do the last inward looking to make sure that the attitude is right and everything works according to plan. And then we're going to look at the garden of life so that life becomes a garden because everybody really wants to walk through gardens. People don't want to walk through graveyards. People don't want to walk through your trauma. People want to walk through your success. And that's what we're going to show people to do. So that's the curriculum. Now, let's get to the next part. This is the interesting part. So in the next part, you're going to adopt a coachee. So you have to find a buddy. Now, I remember in the army, when we were in the army, we had to do buddy PT. We had to choose a buddy, and then we had to carry the buddy. So guess what happened with me? I was the tallest and the skinniest. But because I was the tallest, I got the weightiest guy to carry. So I battled. So it didn't always work. But what I'm saying is you need to adopt a buddy. So you've got to find a buddy that's going to go through the next 10 weeks with you and who's going to spend 8 hours of that week with you to work through your homework. So in other words, you aren't just going to do a course. You are going to actually practice everything that is taught in my 2-hour lecture. You're going to implement in that next week for 8 hours. Then you will have a personal inventory where we'll unpack qualities, also 8 hours that you will work on that, and there will be tests that you will do online. There will be a little online test that you will do, interesting things that you will enjoy, that you'll understand yourself better. Then ways to found the future, also 8 hours in the week that you'll work on that. Life substance, 8 hours for that week. The big picture, managing situations for 8 hours, securing life's canopy, 8 hours, looking inward the 8 hours in the garden of life, and then evaluation prep. Now, the evaluation is going to be done this way, and you can speak to my previous coaches that I've trained is in the evaluation period, I look at what you've done with your coachee through the 10 weeks. So in other words, you've walked a path with your coachee for 10 weeks. I evaluate that. I interview your coachee. I interview you. We have a look at your Go Faith model, how you planned it, how you worked through it, because remember, this whole thing is to actually implement the Go Faith model and to take somebody through it so that when you leave, you have actually coached people for, you've coached a person at least for 112 hours, 9 weeks of practice. You've got them going there. And that means when you leave, you have 112 hours of coaching experience from low to high, and then you also have an evaluation certificate that I will give you at the end. It's not a SACWA certificate. I'm repeating that, and that's why you're not getting it at a SACWA fee. You're getting it at a much lower fee. So it's going to be 10 weeks online every Thursday evening as we're doing now. It's going to be hard work for me and for you. And it started tonight, the first lecture, and it will continue for those who feel they want to continue and pay the fee. They're more than welcome to do so. So it's your future. It's building blocks for a Christian life coach. It's personality matching, body language, conflict management, time management, stress management, listening skills, root cause analysis, marital and relationship management, addiction and release, and the most of all, a plan for life. It's your future and other people's future we're going to work on as we continue with this new way of working together with counselors. Thank you very much. Finally, we coach in Jesus' shadow, and this is what I would like to leave with you. Thank you. So everybody, thank you for joining. I don't know if I haven't seen any hands. Anybody who maybe wants to ask a question, you are welcome. If you could just raise your hand, um, and then unmute your mic and ask the question, please. Lynette,
Hi, good evening.
yes.
Just a question. The email addresses. I had a bit of a challenge with emailing this past week. And I think online as well as on the emails that I'd received. I'm wondering now when we are giving feedback or asking questions, which one would be used? Because I'm not sure if it's being received. I mean, it sounds like a technical question, but I think that the communication, the fact that, if we needed to talk to you at any stage, how would we do that?
Okay, yes, you would be able to send me an email at drcliff at academyrc.co.za. The marketing, the reason for the two email addresses, the one's a marketing email address, and I don't think our marketeers didn't want to overload me with emails. So they caught the emails first and then sent the emails on to me that I should answer. But for those students that are going to be in the class, they will work directly with me at my email address. With I'll give you a timeline to answer as well. We can work on that.
Okay. And then just one other question. When you said eight, choosing a buddy, and then 8 hours, would that structure be dependent on the coach and the coach's availability? So, say for example, somebody works shifts during the week and they can only do 4 hours on a Saturday and say 4 hours on a Monday. Then
Yeah.
that is entirely up to us. Is that my
Entirely
understanding?
up to you. It's freestyle
Okay.
because that's what I want to teach coaches. You can coach anywhere. You can coach at work as well. Because remember, and you'll see one of the lessons I give is how do we do roundtable coaching? How do we do tea time coaching? So those are the things that you can do. So, and for shift
Okay.
workers, that's excellent. You can do it that way.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thanks very much, Pastor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think we've come to the end. And let me just see, I'm just seeing on there's so many on the screen. I just wanted to see that I haven't missed anybody. So no other questions, then I would um, like to just then close with prayer, and then wish you all a good evening. And thank you so much for being online and enjoying the evening with us. So let us pray together. Lord God, I come to you tonight and I pray, Lord, that something good will come out of what's happened tonight. I pray that the gospel of God or the gospel of Christ will be spread across the world because we're all doing that and we're working hard on it. I pray that the gospel will go to the workplace, and I pray that coaching will happen in the workplace with kingdom principles, and that God will bless everyone who blesses someone else, who teaches someone else to do good and to be good. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you all and have a wonderful evening. You're welcome to communicate with me on my email address. It's drcliff at Academy RC, I can't say more R's, rc.co.za. I think, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
Okay.